Giovanni Mpetshi Perricard is the next serve god. I made a video 3 months ago, and in the thumbnail I asked, is Perricard the next serve god? And in the video I analyzed his serve in depth, and I made a statement that he could possibly be one of the greatest servers in the world. But after his tournament in Basel, where he won the whole thing without dropping serve a single time, I can now make the statement that Giovanni Perricard is one of the best servers in the world at the moment, and he is in the category of a serve god because his statistics on the serve are out of this world. During this tournament in Basel, he averaged 140 miles an hour on his first serve. Now that's not the crazy part, that's crazy enough. The crazy part is that he averaged 129 miles an hour on his second serve. Shelton, who is also an unbelievable server, averaged 120 miles an hour on his first serve. So Perricard's second serve was faster in average than Shelton's first serve. Let that sink in. This guy is an unbelievable server. Now I'm going to link my detailed analysis of the Perricard serve in a pinned comment, but let me quickly guide you through some technical elements of the Perricard serve. So he has a phenomenal rhythm, what I call the 1-2-3 rhythm, where he shifts the weight from the front foot to the back foot. He initiates the toss and moves his weight forward, and he has a full lag where the racket is frozen on the bottom. And then once he releases the ball with his left hand and begins to take the racket up into the trophy phase, that back foot begins to slide up to the front foot. Now in the trophy phase, you're going to see some discrepancies in how much loading Perricard does depending on where he's serving from, and this is very common among some of the greatest servers in history. Federer, Raonic do this very similarly, where if they're serving to the deuce side as a right-hander, they will not coil as much as if they were serving to the ad side. This is where they would coil more. So Perricard on the ad side will coil quite a bit. His chest is pointing towards the back fence, and on the deuce serve he coils a little bit less. But regardless of serve direction, Perricard loads his serve by bending backwards. This is something that I recommend to all my players. Of course, this depends on flexibility. You don't want to go into the pain category, but you want to get your chest up to the sky. And Perricard also has this back foot slightly on the outside of the front foot. And with his elbow being behind his body, he has a mini corkscrew action on his serve as well. Now, one unique thing on the Perricard serve that's somewhat reminiscent to Ivanisevic and Kyrgios is the fact that he has a fast rhythm. So the rhythm is not fast through the entirety of the serve. He starts slow, and then once he releases the ball and starts to take the racket up into the trophy phase and begins to bring that back foot up, that's where the serve becomes very speedy and very explosive. See, the thing about great service is not all about the serve itself, it's also about the hold game. And in my opinion, Pete Sampras has the best hold game in the history of tennis. But Perricard's hold game is very dangerous because he does something that is quite old school. We don't see this in modern tennis anymore, which is basically hit 2 first serves. And I'm going to have to go way back into the 90s with players like Sampras and Ivanisevic to find players who actually hit their second serves as fast as their first serves. So Perricard does not care that he has a second serve, he's going to go for it. See, what's commonplace on the tour today that on the second serve the ball is kicked in and players will seldomly go for it. Some do every now and then, but I haven't seen anyone go for it on every single serve. Now, of course, when you are going for your second serves, there is risk involved, and you have to have confidence in your second serve first and foremost, but you also have to be okay with double faulting every now and then. This is unavoidable, and Perricard does rank top 10 in the world in double faults. He's number 9 on the ATP in the most double faults committed. But this is not a negative stat for Perricard because he is going for the serve. So if Sinner all of a sudden ends up in the top 10 in the world in double faults, that's a very negative stat. But for Perricard, this is not a negative stat because he knows exactly what he's doing on that second serve. He's going for it, and of course there are going to be some mistakes involved. And when he's serving well, like he did in the tournament in Basel, he is going to be close to unbreakable, especially when we're talking about a fast indoor surface. Now, I have a great video coming out on the Kyrio serve, and I want you to check it out by signing up for Intuitive Tennis Premium. This is a pre-release. This video will eventually be released on YouTube. But speaking of fast serves, they are very popular. So a lot of players at the recreational level love to copy the Kyrio serve, and I'm sure the more famous Perricard becomes, people are going to try to copy his serve. But I advise you to be cautious regarding these serves because they have to be natural. So you have to be a player that can execute fast body actions. And often when you try to adapt the serve rhythm that's too quick, you end up with technical problems on the serve. Which now brings me to the topic of Jack Draper, who also won a 500 level tournament just like Perricard. He won Vienna, and Draper also happens to be one of the best servers in the world. He has a lot of similarities to Perricard on his serve. He has a very similar rhythm. He has a full lag on his serve, meaning that he tosses the ball first, pulls the back foot up to the front foot as the racket is going up, and his back foot is a little bit more towards the outside compared to Perricard. He has a corkscrew loading position similar to Giovanni Mpetshi Perricard. Jack Draper, being a lefty, he's able to slice that lefty serve, flatten it out, and he's a very dangerous player to reckon with. So when I compare the rhythms of Perricard and Draper, the Draper rhythm is easier to adapt for the vast majority of players. Why? Because it's a slow build-up. So the Perricard serve moves extremely quickly once he starts taking that racket up, while the Draper serve builds up more slowly. So he doesn't go up very fast with the racket. He gives himself a little bit more time by going up slowly, and then once he reaches that trophy phase, he unloads very powerfully, just like Perricard does. Now, of course, with a fast rhythm comes along a lower toss. You cannot have a fast rhythm and toss the ball too high. You're not going to be able to time your serve. So Perricard hits the ball almost at the apex. The ball drops a very minimal amount, while Draper does toss the ball a little bit higher and allows it to drop. This has to match to your rhythm. There's no right or wrong when it comes to style in tennis. You got to find one that's going to suit you best. I am going to dedicate a full video to the Draper serve and analyze it in a little bit more detail. Another quality that all serve gods have in common is serving their absolute best when it matters the most. And often this won't show up in the statistics other than maybe break points saved. But let me guide you through the very end of the second set tiebreak between Perricard and Shelton. So it's 4-all, and Shelton has a very easy volley that he can put away, but he ends up missing it. This happened on Shelton's serve. Now it's 5-4 Perricard. He's got 2 serves to win his first ATP 500 title. And what does Perricard do? He serves 2 absolute bombs. Absolutely no chance for Shelton to get anywhere near those serves. So Perricard seems to have the ability to serve his best when it matters the most. Of course, he will have to do this in the most important tournaments, at the most important stages of tournaments against the best players. So he still has to prove that he has this ability, but I often bring up the example of one of the greatest servers of all time, Boris Becker, who doesn't really show up on the top of many serve statistics, but Becker was so good at serving his best when it matters the most. There's one famous match at the US Open where Becker was down love 40 on his serve against Andre Medvedev, and Becker ended up serving 5 aces. But the fact is, Perricard is an exciting player, not just because of the serve. To me, he is a blast from the past. To all the tennis nostalgics that love tennis from the 90s, you're gonna love this guy because this guy is not looking to rally and extend the points. This guy is looking to end the point with a serve. He's looking to come to the net, and he also happens to have a one-handed backhand that he bunts very often. He reminds me a little bit of a player like Michael Stich or Richard Krajicek. He has for sure an old school game plan, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does next week on home soil at the Masters 1000 in Paris.